So if you have to ask yourself, do I really love what I do? Or if I don't love what I do, can I achieve that when I'm an independent consultant? Because having a passion for what you do, especially when you go, that's the most important thing of all. It's crucial because there are going to be times where you're a little bit down in the dumps, and there are going to be times when you're really flying high and everything. And it's that passion that's going to keep you grounded and keep you moving forward. So that's, I had to mention that because that's very important.
Welcome back to another episode of Limitless. Today I have with me Scott Trampolt. He's a principal consultant and managing director with Trampolt Compensation Design. Scott is with us to talk about his latest book, The Defragmented Consultant, How to Build a Sustainable Independent Consulting Practice. So a topic that is very timely, and I know that many of the listeners will absolutely love this. Scott, a warm welcome to you. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here and to address your audience.
Fantastic, Scott. And before we dig into the topic, just a brief introduction to yourself, please.
Sure. Well, I'm what's called a compensation consultant, and I've been doing that for the past 13 years. Basically, what I do is I assist companies of all industries, really, and wherever they are located around the globe. I've done projects as far away as China, visited China, and what I really ultimately do is I focus on how to pay and motivate employees in the workplace, working with companies to understand their compensation philosophy, how they want to pay individuals. And I use a lot of tools in the marketplace to figure out, based on their philosophy, how can we engage employees, go beyond just merely paying them appropriately for their job, but also to link in factors like career development. How do you link career development to compensation? And that's really essentially crucial because in today's day and age, we're really trying to find ways to make employee engagement something that really happens in the workplace. It's not just a matter of having people show up to work and to do a basic job, but to truly be engaged in the business mission. Because what we've discovered is when we do that, good business results follow. And so it's more than just, what I do is more than just basically evaluating what a job pays. It goes well beyond that. And a lot of companies and a lot of different industries utilize those kind of services to figure out how can we link this idea of pay to career development and then to make it work from an employee engagement perspective. Now, just briefly, prior to that, for 18 years, I was in the corporate world, and it was all of those experiences, great as they were. I worked both in the United States, where I'm from, and also over in Germany for a while. So I have that global expertise. But what was great about that experience ultimately was that it led me to my current path, which I wanted to devote all of my time to helping as many companies as possible in the area of compensation. So that's why I've been doing the consultant thing for 13 years.
Fantastic, Scott. So happy to have you with us on the show. I think because it couldn't be more timely. And, I had a look at your book as well, and the Defragmented Consultant, and what I like there and what I think is very timely is what it says. It's a method to transition from the corporate world to independent consultant that draws upon your past and redefines it for future success. Because I know so many out there at the moment are a bit anxious and they're worried about the corporate work they have. Even someone who's been 20, 30 years in their job might not feel safe these days. There's so much, changes getting out there. AI is disrupting the world of work, and therefore people are anxious. And they are actually coming to us and asking, how can I, diversify myself? And let's start there. And maybe you can elaborate a little bit of how can people then transition from the corporate world to becoming an independent consultant? And do you have any tips to start there?
Sure. Well, just to follow up on what you initially said about the number of people out there, who I'm trying to really address with this book are the people indeed that have had many years. And the book, by the way, we can get into this a little bit, but the book, by the way, is not a book about compensation, what I do. It is specifically about being an independent consultant. And of course, there are so many fields of people that go into that. But one of the questions that I get from people about being an independent consultant they will say to me, aren't you worried about where your next paycheck is coming from? That seems rather insecure. And what I say to them is what I've learned over the past 13 years since I've been able to sustain my business, is that to me, what I've learned is it's less secure for the reasons that you pointed out, based on AI, not only AI, but just in general with companies at a whim. Anytime that they want, they can let you go. And you've really got to think about either getting a job with another firm where you're doing something similar, or you've got to start over from scratch. So I'm really trying to reach all types of consultants with the book, and in particular, those people that have built up a long track record, or a fairly long track record, at least 10, 15 years of working in the corporate world, where they've had all these wonderful experiences and they've tried out ideas and they've done a lot of things in terms of practical application, and drawing from that experience into being an independent consultant, not just based on a need, based on what they need now from society, but to draw off of all of those experiences and refine them. Because think about it this way. When you are an independent consultant, and I'm talking about not having a bunch of employees, I'm talking about literally being the person that works day in and day out, the face of the organization you are, and you're doing all the work. So you have got to find ways of keeping your quality as high as possible, but at the same time, being able to service 7 or 8 clients at a time, or whatever you're capable of. So a lot of the book goes into having an awareness of, hey, I've been here before in this new challenge. I simply need to refine it to make it work within this environment. So you're drawing from your past, but you're refining it because now you're in a different role. You're not just one of many. You're one individual person, as I said. So you've got to work faster, more efficiently, but still keep your quality up if you want to make as much as you did in the corporate world, or if not more. And that's the ironic thing. In 13 years, I've had, I think, 1 year where I made about the same as I did in my highest paying level role. I've exceeded that in 12 out of 13 years. So the opportunities are there. And the greatest thing about it all is because I've been able to tap those 18 years in the past and redefine them based on each individual situation that I come across, it's helped me sustain my ability. We all want to look towards the forward in time and to see how our career is going to go. But at this point in my career, over the past 13 years, I've been able to leverage that prior experience to really make it work as an individual, where I'm totally relying on myself. And the other thing I try and do in the book is to not paint a completely rosy picture that everything is going to be perfect. There are unique challenges that you're going to face as an independent consultant, whether they're personal or professional, because you're really merging the two when you become an independent consultant. So I try and give an approach that really, I didn't even write the book right away. I wanted years and years of experience to compile to see if my initial suspicions were correct about being an independent consultant, because it was initially scary making that leap of faith. But I'm trying to nudge people into that direction. So not only can they make the same or more than they were making in the corporate environment, but they can get a little bit closer to self-actualization for themselves. That's really what I'm pushing here, because I've never been happier.
Yeah, and I think that's a very, very encouraging for everyone who's listening. And indeed, it can be about transitioning, what I'm hearing, the skills that they had in the corporate world, and now repackaging this into their new business, and not only earning the same or maybe even more, but also, as you touched on there, Scott, the self-actualization, to actually live the life that they love without having someone who tell them what to do. They're now in charge of their life. So that sends some hope to the listeners. And I just want to also ask you here, Scott, what does then defragmenting your consulting business actually means here?
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, defragment comes from a computer information technology term. It's about being able to defrag your files on your computer so you run more efficiently and more effectively your computer. So the defragmentation process that I talk about, it's broken into 3 different categories: awareness, method, and sustainability. So it takes off of those three themes in the book, and it keeps emphasizing them in different scenarios. But it really is this idea about you're defragmenting your mind. I actually, if you look at the cover of the book, this is the paperback cover. You can see a brain there, and you can see the little defragmented. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it really is trying to apply this idea of refining all of the information that you have in your head. And because what happens is when you're working in the corporate world, even if it's for 3 or 4 years, and then you go to another company and you work for another two, each of those companies has a different work culture, and it has a different business model. But what happens when you're dealing with 7 or 8 clients at the same time, they all have different business models and different work cultures. So you have to process this information. You have to be aware of these differences and continually switching gears. And that's why I think that it's not just that people that have worked in the corporate world for 15 or 20 years have that much greater knowledge, because as you know, some people just like to stay in the same boat and not necessarily grow in a lot of different ways. But then there are others that really, when they have 5 years of experience, they might really have gotten themselves involved in projects that has increased their knowledge level much quicker than other people. So everybody's different. But I think that's the key thing, that you need some type of a model like defragmentation to be more efficient and always continually not fall into patterns where you think all companies are the same and they're looking for the same thing and they have the same type of employees. I've worked for such a variety of companies that I found that I have to have this defragmentation method in order to sustain my business. I've been going now for 13 years. I didn't even start writing the book until I had been in the business for 5 or 6 years. And then it took me another 6 years. It's only been out since December, but it took me another 6 years to see if what I originally thought was correct still. And for the most part, it was. But everybody's journey is a little bit different. So I'm trying to highlight the commonalities in the book about a method that it doesn't matter if you are a consultant in something very different than what I do. You can still apply those lessons, including whether or not you should even make the leap in the first place. I have one chapter, and you mentioned this at the beginning, that you wanted something from a particular chapter. I talk in several chapters about different catalysts, different triggering events that help me to move off of the corporate world, where I was very comfortable, and go out on my own. And one of the other things I do is I lay out 12 specific questions that you should ask yourself and be really honest with yourself that go well beyond, do I have enough money to live off of until I can start landing clients? That's very basic, and that's been in many other consultant books. But what I think this book does is it helps to translate these type of other personal issues mixed in with professional to give you an idea of whether or not you have a chance to be successful.
Fantastic, Scott. That sounds like some hands-on tip that will be very useful for someone.
Yes, I believe so.
And if we're looking then at the mindset shift that is needed here, I did a shift myself about the corporate year, from the corporate to being a consultant and coach and speaker about a decade ago. But in your view, Scott, what's the biggest mindset shift that needs to happen then?
The biggest mindset is that if you're running a company like I am that's got your name on it, and you're the only person that's doing that, you really have to understand you're going to be, there's so many changes, but what they all ultimately boils down to is that the person and the job become much closer together in everything that they do, because you're totally relying on yourself. This means, this spreads out into so many different areas. It means you're going to have to go out and get your own health insurance. It means you're going to, in the past, when you were in the corporate world, you at least were moving and walking around to other offices and everything. So you're going to have an exercise plan to keep yourself alert and to keep the weight down, because when you're working at home, it can become very sedentary. Everything changes in terms of the home environment, because before, it took my wife even a couple of years to get used to it, because she was used to me coming home at a certain time, and now here I was all the time around. She liked that concept for the most part, but there were different lifestyle changes, and that's what I'm talking about. Is the biggest thing is this idea that your home life and your personal life is going to kind of merge together, and that shouldn't be said in a scary way, like somehow you're going to lose your personal identity. I don't think so. I think if at all, it strengthens your personal identity, but you're really bringing the personal and the professional together in a way that you could have a clear separation from the corporate world. They're much more linked together, and that was the biggest change that I found. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely, Scott, and thanks for sharing that. And do you see that there are any core pillars or consulting practices that many people who make this transition overlook?
Well, I think the way I could phrase it best is that I don't think there is an awareness of sometimes all the things that corporate world is doing for you in the background, that you go in there and you do your job and you do it as good as you can. But there are so many things, like a corporate environment will set up your own financial investment plan for you. They'll contribute to your investments for you. They will provide you health insurance, which they will pay a portion of. And so there are all these things that when you become your own company that you have to do for yourself. And the other piece too is if you're going to be a force of one, like a lot of consultants are, it's just one person like you and like me, you're really going to have to be doing all the little things as well as all the big things. Yes, I'm the head of my little firm, but I'm also sending out the invoices, I'm paying the bills, all of this stuff. You have to market, you have to spend time marketing your business. So you're not just doing a job anymore. It's a change in the way of life. It's so, you know this, it's so much broader. You're going from a narrow focus to a much broader focus in that sense of the word. So that's the thing that I think some people may not be fully cognizant of before they take on this. They say, okay, I'm just going to do what I do well from home. But just taking yourself out of the corporate office and into the home and being self-motivated and taking care of yourself, whether it's financially or medically or physically, all that's on you. And I don't mean to scare people, because the greatest thing of all is once you get that feeling inside of you, you get this wonderful feeling that I never had as much before of self-reliance. You can call it growing pains if you want, but I had a much more feeling of self-reliance than I ever did before in my life.
Yeah, fantastic. I love the hope you're sending to the listeners, especially if there's someone who perhaps is worried that they will be let go. There is hope there. And what about starting these kind of conversations, perhaps someone who's already in the corporate world? Is it something that they can do behind the scene to prepare themselves, even mentally, even start just some small steps in the direction of preparing for the worst, should they be let go?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, what's the harm in picking up a book by someone that's been doing this for 13 years, that was in the corporate world? And you can do a lot of preparation. In fact, I write in the book about the fact that I wish I had done more preparation, but the kind of consulting books that I saw were very technically oriented, and I wanted more of the human experience. So I've tried to put in some chapters that do talk, it's certainly not an autobiography or anything like that, but I did try and include some chapters, a few chapters with personal experiences starting very early in my career that people could identify with. And then from there, provide a blueprint or a roadmap, guidance, so that someone could read this in advance while they still have the security, such as it is, the security of their current job, that they can read and they can see, okay, that's how I can put the pieces together. And if anything, the book is very helpful to let them have awareness of the things that they might not be thinking of. The thing they might be thinking of most is, how can I make enough money so I can stay out of corporate and work on my own? That's just one piece of it. There are the psychological things. Not everybody is a perfect fit to work on their own. Some people are, but this book will help you make that discovery.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Scott. I think you're sending a lot of hope and a lot of wisdom into the world now at the right time here. And if there's someone who's listening who is a bit curious, what's the one action they can take this week to move in this direction, apart from picking up a copy of your book? It is on Amazon, by the way, the Defragmented Consultant. Any other tip that you want to share with the listener?
This would be for people that are thinking about wanting to go into an independent consulting career.
Yes, someone who is in the corporate world today who's thinking about transitioning.
I think really it's to focus on the personal, their personal selves, understanding themselves, asking themselves, are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Now, you can be successful as an independent consultant, either as an extrovert or an introvert. But knowing your personality type is really going to help you to think about that a little bit in terms of shaping your approach. Now, you're going to have to adapt your approach sometimes to meet certain different clients, but I think it's very important to take a good hard look at understanding yourself in terms of who you are and how you're going to be able to apply that working in this type of environment. I think that's very important as an initial step.
Fantastic. I love that. So get to know yourself more, have that self-understanding, and also move towards self-actualization. Do what you love to do. And a lot of what I do in my work, Scott, is also look at the life purpose. What is the legacy we want to write? And this seems very, very aligned. So I love having had you on the show, and I will pick up the book myself after this, Scott. So thank you so much. Any question that I forgot to ask you? Anything that you want to share with the listeners before I let you go today?
One last thing that I didn't mention, and it's about your last question. Understand, are you passionate about what you do? Maybe you can't be passionate in the corporate world, but I think one of the things that you also have to ask yourself is, do I really love what I do? Because that's going to come through to your clients. That's going to be the difference maker. Because a client can always go with a large firm. There are very large firms that do what I do, but those large firms cannot customize things. They're not going to give you as much of a personalized approach all the time. So if you have to ask yourself, do I really love what I do? Or if I don't love what I do, can I achieve that when I'm an independent consultant? Because having a passion for what you do, especially when you go, that's the most important thing of all. It's crucial because there are going to be times where you're a little bit down in the dumps, and there are going to be times when you're really flying high and everything. And it's that passion that's going to keep you grounded and keep you moving forward. So that's, I had to mention that because that's very important.
Thank you so much, Scott. And thank you for having come on the Limitless show to talk about your book, The Defragmented Consultant, a very timely book. Thank you so much, Scott, and thanks to all the listeners as well.